If it's your first time visiting my channel, thank you for clicking on my video. You didn't have to do that, and I appreciate that you did. You're awesome.
Welcome to my video. It is all about the Batman. Bella and Elsa have approved Batman. Mr. FLIXTER.
Hello, world. It's Mr. FLIXTER, and I just love talking motion pictures. Pow! For this week's episode, we're going to go back to the swinging 60s as I review Batman 1966. In celebration of the new Batman film this year, I'm going to review a bunch of Batman films. Because I love Batman. Now, in order for these films to qualify, I only have a couple of criteria. First, it has to be about Batman, and by that, I mean Batman has to be the central focus. So I'm not going to do any villain spin-offs like the Suicide Squad, or Catwoman, or that Joker movie that came out recently, or anything like that. And second, it has to be a theatrical release, because let's face it, there's so many straight-to-DVD animated films, it would be impossible to go through all of them. So, that's it. About Batman, it has to be a theatrical release. And without further ado, let's go. So, as we head into the 60s, we see Batman get a complete makeover. Instead of being the dark grittiness that we were used to in the comics, we see more colorful, campy escapades. Holy bat signal. I seem to be getting another transmission. It seems to be taking over my feed. What is happening? Oh no, it can't be. Can it?
Riddle me this. Riddle me that. Can you solve all 6 riddles before the video fades to black?
So after a successful run after the show premiered in January of 1966, by the time July came around, they had released a movie. This is my spoiler review. In the movie, all the villains team up together because they realize there's strength in numbers. Holy nightmare fuel, Batman. What kind of nefarious plot could they be plotting?
Riddle me this. How do you divide 17 apples among 16 people?
Swap! Directed by Leslie H. Martinson, he uses a lot of fun camera movements like zooms, pans, tilts, tracking shots, and crane shots to create a live-action cartoon. It's pretty fun, a lot of the stuff that he does. It keeps it visually interesting too. And they really use color to further this idea too. There's actually a lot of really impressive filmmaking techniques in this. I mean, you gotta remember, this is the time before CGI, so all this was done using practical effects. And there's a lot of movie magic moments that made me wonder how they did certain things, like the way Batman and Robin scale walls. I know how they did it now, obviously, but first time you see that, it makes you wonder. But don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. Some of the effects are outright laughable, but there is the impressive stuff. Swoosh! It was written by Lorenzo Semple Jr., and I like how it shows the detective aspect of the dynamic duo. The dynamic duo conducts science experiments in the Batcave to try to make sense of the harrowing happenings that are going on in Gotham City. You gotta love it too, how everything in the Batcave is neatly labeled. This is also a time where they had oddly specific, ridiculous bat gadgets, such as the bat shark repellent. So obviously, it doesn't really take the subject matter too seriously, especially that part when Batman's trying to get rid of the bomb, but he keeps getting stopped by different types of people. Like there's pedestrians in the street, and then there's a marching band, and then there's a mother with her infant. He runs into a pair of nuns, and finally there's a flock of ducks. It seems like something out of Naked Gun almost, but it still works in this context because of what they set up in that first scene with the shark repellent. That's right. That's right off the bat. Holy ridiculousness, Batman.
Riddle me this. What's something no man wants to have, yet no man wants to lose?
Kerplop. Batman and Bruce Wayne is played none other than the one and only Adam West.
Do you like my impression?
I think we can all agree he's one of the most iconic people to don the cape and cowl. The best thing about his performance is no matter how ridiculous some of the lines are that he says them with such deadpan seriousness that he gives off such a commanding presence that you're just encapsulated, but not just what he says, but how he says it. He also does really good at playing the Bruce Wayne side of the character too, which is what a lot of future Batmans end up lacking. They do Batman pretty well, but they just don't really do justice to Bruce Wayne. I don't want to name names, but I think you know who I mean specifically. Just because I won't name names doesn't mean I won't show a picture. Splat! Burt Ward plays Robin / Dick Grayson, and he's another iconic person to play the role. Probably one of the most, in my opinion. And he's probably the most well known for his hilarious exclamations. Holy costume party, Batman! He's just full of exclamations like this. But aside from that, he plays the role with an inquisitive, analytical, and enthusiastic side that has yet to be replicated to this day. Suck! Alan Napier plays Alfred, the loyal butler, guardian, and mentor to Batman. While rather one-dimensional in this rendition, he plays the part eloquently, articulated by his joy to assist the heroes unquestionably. Thwack! Neil Hamilton plays Commissioner Gordon, and even though this is more of a dumbed-down version of the character than what we're used to in later versions, he still gives a pretty outstanding performance, because this really shows the continued trust and that development of the relationship between Bruce Wayne and the Commissioner. He really wants to help Batman, why he thinks Batman is good for Gotham City. And he really shows why Gotham really needs Batman. Just like everybody else in the role, you can tell he's having the time of his life in this performance. This brings me to the villains of the movie. My personal favorite part.
Riddle me this. When is the time of the clock similar to the whistle of a train?
Bam! So, Lee Merriweather plays Catwoman in this. And she replaces Julie Newmar, who played her on the show previously, in the first season. And even though she plays the over-sexualized, seductive siren, keep in mind that this was a different time, so even though it could be considered sexist nowadays, it was just the way that women were written back then. However, it's not all bad. She does use her mind as equally as she uses her body to seduce Batman. And again, she's one of those iconic women to play the role of Catwoman. Definitely one of the top for me, personally. She's Elsa approved. Fun fact, I actually named Elsa after the character Selena Kyle. Her full name is Elsa Kyle Clara, because if you look closely at her face, kind of looks like she's wearing a mask, eh? That's where it comes from. And Elsa Selena Clara doesn't really roll off the tongue as easily. Kapow! So, Cesar Romero plays the Joker in this. And what hasn't been said about this iconic actor in this iconic role? He set such a high bar for all the future actors who eventually filled his clown shoes. He just gives this uncanny energy that is yet to be paralleled. I mean, everyone has their different take on it, but nobody plays him like Cesar Romero. He also has one of the best Joker laughs, in my opinion. And I love his little gadgets, too. They're so ridiculous and so over the top. It's just so Joker, especially for this time period. He really takes it to that cartoonish level that you'd expect from this side of the franchise. Let's face it, that laugh is just haunting. Thunk! Burgess Meredith plays the Penguin in this. The infamous mob boss extraordinaire. He's basically funding the entire operation. That's his role. He brings this undeniable charisma to the role, and he poses a real threat to our heroes. Nobody else plays the Penguin like him. And he has that laugh too, that wah, 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 wah. Who hasn't done that in their lifetime? In fact, when I say the Penguin, that's probably what you imagine. The umbrellas and that wah, 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 wah. It's just so much fun to do. Zlunk. This brings me to my personal favorite villain, Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. He plays the maniacal madman with such glee it's hard to deny his charm. And while some of his riddles in this seem to be lacking compared to the ones in a TV show that he'll eventually do later on, they're still a lot of fun. Although some of them don't really make sense. You can tell he's really having the time of his life playing the character, and he really sets the tone not only for the show, but for all the future iterations down the road about who the Riddler is. Fun fact, the first 2 episodes of the TV show is a Riddler story.
Riddle me this. How is an orange like a bell?
Zowie! So the main plot of this movie revolves around the villains equipping themselves with this dehydrator, which would turn humans into dust. No joke. After the Commodore accidentally breaks the vials containing these powdered council members of like this UN sort of thing that they have established early on in the film, what happens is Batman takes it back to the Batcave and he uses his super molecular dust separator in order to filter out the mingled dust particles and separate them from each other. Interestingly enough, before they bring them back to life, Robin asks Batman the question if they should alter the humans in any way in order to make them better than what they were before. Less corrupt and ultimately less violent, making a more peaceful society. And Batman reminds him it's not their place to play God. So with the world watching, our heroes save the day by rehydrating these people. Bang! Overall, holy hallelujah, Batman! This film carries on the tradition of the first season of the show that inspired it, but not only that, it introduces a lot of mainstays that we know and love today in the Batman franchise. For example, there's the Batmobile, there's that penchant for giving devices the Bat prefix, there's those classic onomatopoeia cards during those epic fight scenes. And it also gave live-action versions of a lot of the iconic villains we know and love today, too. Maybe it's the nostalgia, maybe it's the devotion to the character, or maybe just the love of fun, but I find this film very hard to resist, and it's highly enjoyable in my opinion. I mean, everything now has the darker version of things, and that's just so contrived now, because everyone's got to have the darker take on things. Whatever happened to having fun, hanging out with our favorite superheroes, kicking butt, and taking names? That pretty much sums it up. This film is just that. Pure joy. And I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. They just don't make cheesy, hilarious, fun films like this anymore. And that's a shame. The world needs more of that right now.
Riddle me this. What was Joan of Arc made of?
Whammy! So, I wrote a review on Facebook. I'll put links for that below. But my official grade for this is extra large popcorn.
Riddle me this. What has neither flesh, bone, nor nails, yet has 4 fingers and a thumb?
Please keep in mind, this is only my opinion. It's okay to agree with me, and it's okay to agree to disagree with me. All I ask is that you have some class about it. In case you haven't heard, I'm a film critic on HorrorBuzz.com, and I make frequent appearances on HorrorBuzz Live, their YouTube channel, so I'll make sure to put links below for that. Until next time, I'm Mr. FLIXTER, and I just love motion pictures. Have a great day. Mr. FLIXTER. So for the first riddle, you can divide 17 apples among 16 people by making applesauce. For the second riddle, something that no man wants to have, yet no man wants to lose, is a lawsuit. For riddle number 3,
The time of the clock and the whistle of a train are the same when it's 222. Get it? 222! For the fourth riddle, the way that an orange and a bell are similar is because they both have peals. You see, peal, spelled P-E-A-L, is defined as the loud ringing sound of a bell. For the fifth riddle, what was Joan of Arc made of? She was the Maid of Orleans. Get it? And finally, for the last riddle, what has 4 fingers and a thumb, it doesn't have flesh, bone, nor nails? It's a glove. A glove. Like a glove.
How many riddles did you correctly answer? Make sure to let me know in the comments down below, and we can talk about it. What are some of your favorite riddles?
Hey diddle diddle, I've got one more riddle. Have you ever seen a littler riddler?